Barnes watched Wilson Fisk smile for the cameras like he owned the oxygen in the room. The hearing hall in lower Manhattan had been renovated after the blip. More glass, more flags, more places for a sniper to hide. Bucky stood near the rear exit in a ball cap and plain jacket, shoulder brushing the doorframe the way he'd done in war rooms since before televisions were flat. Up front, Kane's hands rested on the table, as if he were a philanthropist asked to explain an accounting error, not a man rumored to have buried enemies beneath the city. Sam's voice crackled in Bucky's earpiece. "I still don't like it, too public." "That's why it works," Bucky murmured. "He thinks public means safe." Across the aisle, Michaela Mackenzie sat with her legs crossed, looking bored. Her glove brushed the end of a compact bow staff at her feet, the tip capped like a prop. Bucky had learned in the last week that most dangerous people looked like they were waiting for a drink order. 2 rows ahead, Victor Von Doom sat alone, perfect posture, expensive suit, eyes like cold math. The UN badge on his lapel looked less like an honor and more like a warning label. And near the front, Matthew Darling, Tremors, stood as security, wearing plain black over his armor pieces like he was trying to pretend his life wasn't complicated. His gaze never stopped moving. Fisk answered a question about enhanced criminal networks with a calm that made Bucky's skin itch. "We all want safety," Kane said. "Safety requires order." Order. Bucky had heard that word from people who meant cages. Murdoch sat at counsel's table, head slightly tilted, listening with that stillness that wasn't still at all. He didn't look at Kane when he spoke, but his jaw tightened. Murdoch's voice carried across the microphones. "Mr. Kane, is it your testimony that you have no involvement with the Pacific Ring gang?" "No involvement," Kane said. Bucky heard it then, not through his own ears but through the tension in the room. Murdoch's throat bobbed once. Sam swore softly over comms. "He's lying." Murdoch's fingers flexed on the tabletop. "Your heart rate didn't change," he said, tone careful, controlled. "That is what most people do when they lie." Kane's smile widened a fraction. "Perhaps I'm not most people." Michaela's head turned, eyes unfocusing as if she were staring through Kane instead of at him. Her voice came through Bucky's earpiece, low. "Buck, his insides are wrong." Bucky's hand found the edge of his hidden sidearm. "Define wrong." "Organs are rearranged, like someone copied a diagram from memory. And there's something else under the skin, a shimmer, not tech, not human." Matthew Darling's palm dropped to the floor, as if by accident. The stone tiles trembled. Kane's glass of water quivered, then skated an inch toward the table edge. Fisk looked down at it, and for the first time his composure slipped. His eyes flicked to the nearest exit. Bucky moved. He didn't sprint. He glided through the aisle with the practiced economy of a man who'd outlived the luxury of wasting motion. "Sam," he said. "Now." The window above the chamber exploded inward, not with shrapnel but with a controlled gust as Sam dropped through in red and white, wings flaring to deflect debris. Screams rose. Kane stood too quickly. His chair toppled. "Mr. Kane," Doom said, voice dry enough to burn. "Leaving so soon. We were just beginning to discuss your nature." Kane's face twitched, like a bad signal catching up. Skin rippled. The man at the table was gone. In his place, a green-skinned figure unfolded from the suit, taller than expected, eyes black and cold. The room froze for half a beat, as if disbelief could be armor. Then chaos detonated. Security drew weapons, half of them aimed at the wrong targets. "Not all of them are ours," Sam shouted. Bucky vaulted the railing and landed hard on the floor near the table. The Skrull that had been Kane hissed, jaw unhinging in a way no human throat should allow. It threw the table aside like it weighed nothing. Matthew slammed both hands down. The marble beneath the Skrull's feet buckled into a rising ridge, trying to pin its ankles. Metal from nearby chair legs twisted, snaking toward it like restraints. The Skrull tore free with brute strength and a snarl. From the back doors, 3 more figures pushed in, 2 guards and a staffer, faces melting into the same green. Michaela vanished mid-run. Bucky caught the flash of her movement only by the displaced air and the sudden crackle of her taser. One Skrull jerked, convulsed, and slammed into the wall. A blue light lanced across the chamber. Doom didn't raise his voice. He raised a hand, fingers drawing a shape in the air that left afterimages like ink in water. The light struck the doorframes and sealed them with a humming barrier. "Containment," Doom said. "You're welcome." "Thor," Sam called. A crash answered him. The far wall caved inward like it had been punched by weather. Thor Odinson stepped through in hospital scrubs stretched to the edge of surrender, hair unkempt, eyes sharp with a tired fury. "I was told," he said, "there would be liars." Lightning crawled over his forearms without a weapon in sight, as if his body remembered what it was even when his mind wasn't sure. The Skrull Kane lunged for Bucky. Bucky met it with his metal arm and felt the impact up through his shoulder like a battering ram. The Skrull's strength was close to his. Too close. It leaned in, breath sour and wet. "Captain," it rasped, tasting the word like a joke. Bucky shoved forward, headbutted it, then drove his knee into its ribs. Something cracked, cartilage, not bone. "Steve's not here," the Skrull snarled. Bucky's stomach tightened. Old ghosts, new ones wearing familiar faces. "Yeah," Bucky said, gripping its collar. "That's why you picked now." He slammed the Skrull into the raised stone ridge Matthew had formed. The ridge hardened, crystal veining through it, locking the Skrull in place from waist down. Sam pinned a second Skrull with a wing, metal edges biting. Michaela reappeared long enough to jam her bow staff's tip into a third Skrull's throat and fire. Its scream went silent. Doom stepped closer to Kane's Skrull, blue light gathering again. "Tell me who sent you," he said, polite as a diplomat, "or I will discover it the unpleasant way." The Skrull's eyes flicked, calculating. Then it smiled. Its body convulsed, and burst into a spray of acidic blood that splattered the stone and hissed like it was alive. Bucky yanked back too late. A droplet hit his sleeve, smoking a hole. A suicide capsule, Bucky thought, not a soldier's choice, a spy's. The other Skrulls fought with sudden desperation, trying to reach their fallen leader. Thor's lightning pinned them, not killing, just caging them in crackling air. Matthew's stone hands rose from the floor to clamp their wrists. In the aftermath, the hall stank of ozone and panic. Murdoch crouched by what remained of the Skrull's suit jacket and fished out a small device, smooth, black, pulsing faintly. "This was on him," he said. Doom took it without asking. His eyes narrowed as blue light traced its surface. "A relay," he murmured. "Not local." Sam landed beside Bucky, chest heaving. "So it's true, it's not just Fisk," he said, voice stripped raw. "They're here." Bucky stared at the acid-scarred floor where Kane had died as something else. "They've been here." Thor looked around at the terrified civilians huddled behind overturned chairs. For a moment his expression softened, grief and responsibility twisting together. "Then we do what we have always done," he said, quieter. "We endure." Doom turned toward the exit, already planning 10 moves ahead. "No," he corrected. "We survive, and we do it by choosing very carefully who gets to stand beside us." Bucky felt the weight of the shield he hadn't brought into this room, the symbol he carried anyway. Somewhere in the city, more faces would be wrong. And the next time, the Skrulls wouldn't choose a courtroom. They'd choose a funeral. The Latvian embassy didn't look like a fortress from the street. That was the point. Inside, it was all angles and hush, black marble, cold brass, and tapestries that made the air feel older than New York. The doors sealed behind them with a soft click that sounded too final. Victor Von Doom led without rushing. "Welcome," he said, as if 6 exhausted fighters and 1 traumatized god in hospital scrubs were a scheduled delegation. "Try not to bleed on the rugs. They are historically significant." Sam's eyes tracked every corner. "You brought us here because it's protected." Doom's smile had no warmth. "Because it is mine." Thor looked up at the vaulted ceiling like he expected it to collapse into a memory. Lightning murmured under his skin in restless threads. He spoke as if to himself. "This place smells like oaths." "It smells like disinfectant and rich people," Michaela muttered, then turned her head slightly, listening to something no one else heard. "And fear." Bucky set his shoulders the way he had before raids, before betrayals, before waking up in a world that kept changing names. He didn't have a war room anymore. He had people, some of them strangers, and a shield that wasn't in his hands but lived in his decisions. "Conference room," Doom said. They followed him past guards whose posture was too perfect to be relaxed. Bucky watched their faces the way he'd once watched train stations in 1943, not for what they showed, but for what they tried to hide. The conference room was glass-walled, but the glass was wrong, too dark, too thick, webbed with faint lines that shimmered when Doom walked near it. "Wards," Matthew said quietly, eyes narrowed. His fingers twitched as if the stone in the walls were speaking to him. "Diplomacy," Doom corrected, taking a seat at the head of the table. A device sat in front of him, Fisk's relay, now resting inside a prism of blue light like it was caught in a frozen breath. I have isolated its broadcast. Sam leaned forward. So it's a beacon. It was, Doom said. Now it is a question. It pings in bursts, not continuous, like someone checking if their message was received. His gaze flicked to Bucky. Your Skrull killed itself before speaking. Professional. That implies command structure. Bucky's metal fingers tapped once against the tabletop. Or fear. Either way, there are more. Murdoch stood by the wall, hands folded, head tilted as if the room had a rhythm. In that hall, 3 people transformed with Kane. They weren't nervous until he was. That suggests coordination. And replacements, Sam said. Doom's eyes narrowed, amused at how quickly they'd used the word like a weapon. Yes, I assume you are wondering how deep. Bucky didn't look at Doom when he answered. Deep enough that the guys with badges shot at civilians first. Silence held for a beat. Thor's hands clenched on the table edge. On Asgard, we had a word for those who wore faces they did not earn. What was it? Michaela asked. Thor's jaw flexed. Cowards. Bucky watched Thor's eyes, not for anger but for that thin glaze that came when the nightmare slipped in. He'd seen it in men after battles, in himself in mirrors he avoided. Doom slid a folder across the table. Inside were printed stills from the hearing, security footage, cropped and sharpened. The same staffer appeared in 3 different places at once across 2 minutes. A scheduling error, Sam offered, already knowing. Doom's voice stayed mild. Unless your clerks have mastered teleportation, it is multiple bodies, or one body, multiple faces. Matthew exhaled through his nose, controlled. So how do we verify anyone? Blood. Michaela raised a brow. Aren't we past the poke everyone phase? Bucky met her gaze. We're at the phase where we don't die because we wanted to be polite. Doom held up one hand. Here in my embassy you may trust the wards. Outside you may trust nothing. That includes the channels you use. As if summoned by the warning, Bucky's burner phone buzzed. One message, no number. Stay indoors. Green Lantern AT Dawn. Sam leaned over, reading it upside down. Who's that from? Bucky's stomach tightened. Elena. Matthew's eyes snapped to him. Beloved. Bucky nodded once. Elena didn't do riddles. Elena did knives and straight lines. Murdoch's head tilted a fraction more. That reads like a code phrase. Doom's fingers steepled. Skrull-coded, perhaps. Warning or instruction. The ambiguity is the point. Sam's voice sharpened. You think Elena has been compromised? I think, Bucky said, choosing each word like a round in a magazine, that someone wants us to move, or wants us not to. Michaela slid into a chair sideways, one boot on the seat like she owned the room. Or she's telling you there's a raid coming and she can't say it clean. Thor looked toward the windowless wall. If they come, we meet them. And if they come wearing our faces? Sam asked. That quieted Thor. His gaze dropped, shame flickering behind the thunder. Bucky pushed the message aside. We need proof, names, a map of who's been swapped. Doom's smile returned, thin and satisfied. At last, something useful. I can trace the relay's last handshake to a terrestrial repeater, a mundane piece of technology hidden under municipal infrastructure. Sam frowned. You're saying the alien spy network is using city equipment. Why build new pipes, Doom said, when the city already leaks? Michaela drummed her fingers on her bow staff. Let me go. I can slip into whatever office is feeding this thing, invisible in and out. Matthew sat forward, alone. Michaela's smile was all teeth. I work better when I'm not babysitting a thunder god and a sorcerer with an ego problem. Doom didn't blink, flattering. Sam looked at Bucky. We stick together. That's how the old team survived. Bucky felt the ghost of Steve in that sentence. How easy it was to say the word team when Steve had been the gravity holding it together. But this was Steve's world, not anymore. Outside these walls, a Skrull could be anyone. Inside them, trust could still be a weapon, if it was earned. Bucky studied Michaela. She de-fought in the hearing without hesitation. She'd vanished into chaos and reappeared where she needed to be. She decalled Kane wrong before anyone else had the courage to believe it. She goes, Bucky said. Sam's head snapped toward him. Buck. Bucky held up a hand. With rules. Michaela's expression turned almost serious. Bucky leaned in. 1, you don't chase. You get what we need and you leave. 2, you don't contact anyone directly. You only ping the embassy channel Doom gives you. 3. If you see a face you recognize acting wrong, you do confront, you mark it and back out. Michaela nodded once. And if I get made? Bucky didn't pretend. Then you survive, however you have to. Thor's voice came low. I will go with her. No, Bucky said firm. You're a lighthouse. Right now we need a candle. Thor's mouth tightened, but he didn't argue. Doom extended 2 fingers and a thin ribbon of blue light unspooled into the air, weaving itself into a coin-sized sigil that hovered over his palm. A locator. It will burn if she crosses my wards, and I will know if it goes dark. His eyes cut to Michaela. Do not make me regret this generosity. Wouldn't dream of it, Michaela said, taking the sigil. It sank into her glove-like ink into paper. Sam exhaled hard. This is how people die, alone in the dark. Bucky looked at the anonymous warning on his phone again. Green Lantern, A.T. Dawn. He thought of the hearing hall, how order had been a mask, how the enemy had chosen a courtroom because everyone assumed rules still mattered. We don't have the luxury of safe, Bucky said. We have the job, we have each other, and we have whatever truth she can steal back before they bury it. Michaela stood. For a second, she looked less like a mercenary and more like someone deciding to be better than her worst instincts. All right, Captain, I'll bring you something worth the risk. She faded, first her outline, then the color, until the air where she'd been looked merely empty. Matthew rubbed his hands together, grounding himself. The stone under the table hummed faintly, responding to his nerves. If that message is real, they're coming. Doom's smile didn't reach his eyes. Let them. This building is sovereign soil. Murdoch's head angled toward the hallway. Sovereign soil doesn't stop a knife in the dark. Bucky rose, every sense tuned. He wasn't just leading a team. He was holding together a fragile idea. That trust could be built faster than fear. Positions, he ordered. We don't wait for dawn to find out what a green lantern means. The embassy's quiet had teeth. Bucky stood with his back to a column of black marble, shield strapped to his forearm like a promise he wasn't sure he deserved. Sam paced near the glass wall, watching reflections as if one of them might move on its own. Matthew sat on the floor, palm down, feeling through stone and steel. Thor leaned against a doorway in scrubs that looked borrowed from a giant, breathing slow, eyes too alert for a man who claimed he was fine. Matt Murdoch listened to all of it, every heartbeat, every shift of cloth, every lie the room tried to tell. Doom's wards pulsed faintly in the air like blue veins. Bucky's burner phone buzzed again. No text this time. The call. The screen showed a name anyway, Elena. Sam's head snapped up. That's her. Bucky didn't move, or something wearing her. The call stopped before anyone could decide. For a second, the silence felt staged. Then from somewhere deep in the embassy, an alarm chimed, soft, almost polite. Doom's eyes narrowed. Not an intrusion. His tone carried mild offense, as if danger was an unscheduled guest. It is a diplomatic request. A request sets off alarms, Michaela would have said. Michaela wasn't here. Doom lifted a hand and drew a line in the air. Blue light opened into a hovering rectangle, video without a screen. A woman stared out from it. Close-cropped hair, tactical jacket with a SWORD patch, soot smudged across one cheek like she'd wiped away blood and mist. Her eyes weren't pleading, they were calculating. Monica Rambeau, she said. Field Commander, SWORD New York. Whoever's in there with Doom, listen fast. Sam stepped closer. We're listening. Monica's gaze flicked over them, registering Thor's size, Bucky's arm, the red of Sam's wings folded at his back. A black site under Queens got hit 10 minutes ago. Facility designation, Green Lantern. Bucky felt his stomach tighten. The message, Green Lantern A.T. Dawn, a warning, not a riddle. Monica continued, voice clipped. We were tracking off-world signal bleed in the city's infrastructure. The site stored the only physical evidence we had, something we pulled off a suspected infiltrator last week. Whoever hit us knew exactly what to take. Doom's expression went coldly amused. And you have come to my door because your own government cannot defend its secrets. I came, Monica said, because my people are bleeding in a tunnel, and your embassy's the only place in Manhattan I can trust isn't already compromised. Matt Murdoch's head tilted. Her heart rates elevated but steady. She's scared and angry, not lying. Monica heard the words and didn't flinch. Good, because there's more. The attackers weren't just well-equipped. They wore our faces. I watched one of my agents shoot at my agent. Thor's fingers curled, lightning whispering under his skin. Face thieves. Bucky made the decision before doubt could chew it apart. We go. Sam frowned. That's exactly what they want. Maybe, Bucky said, but they hit that site for a reason. If we don't show up, they finish clean and vanish. He looked at Doom. You're coming. Doom lifted a brow. Do not confuse cooperation with obedience. Then call it survival, Bucky said. Doom's smile was thin. Very well. Minutes later they were moving, through embassy corridors that swallowed sound, down into an armored garage where a Latverian transport waited with plates that meant nothing to NYPD and everything to anyone who understood consequences. Doom insisted on driving. Of course he did. The city above was awake in the way it always was. Sirens, headlights, people pretending the world hadn't ended twice already. Under Queens, it had ended again. The entrance to Green Lantern was a service hatch hidden behind a municipal power substation. Monica met them there with a small squad, 3 SWORD agents, all exhausted, all looking over their shoulders as if the dark might grow hands. Your backup, Sam asked. Monica's jaw tightened. This is who answered the right frequency and didn't ask for authorization codes. They dropped into the tunnel. The air smelled like burned insulation and copper. Emergency lights strobed, turning every face into a threat for half a second at a time. Bucky led, shield up, metal hand open. He'd spent a lifetime in corridors like this, bunkers, trains, cages. The difference was he'd once been the monster in them. A body lay face down near the first blast door. SWRD uniform, no visible wounds. Matt Murdock crouched, touched the man's neck, then jerked back. Acid. Bucky's gaze sharpened. Same protocol as the hearing. A scream echoed ahead, cut off mid-note. They ran. The main lab had been peeled open like a tin can. Equipment was smashed, data racks ripped out, walls splattered with green blood that steamed where it hit the floor. A Skrull, half-shifted, hauled a hard case toward a secondary corridor. Its skin rippled as it tried to decide which face might scare them most. It chose a SWRD agent's face. Wrong choice, Sam said and launched forward. The Skrull fired first, 3 rounds that should have killed. Bucky's shield took them with a clang that rang through his bones. Thor followed with a crack of lightning that lit the lab bright as noon. The Skrull convulsed, but didn't drop. It tried to run. Matthew's hand snapped out, palm down. The floor bucked. Concrete lifted like a wave and seized the Skrull's ankles, stone wrapping tight. The hard case skidded free. Doom stepped in, blue light flaring from his fingers, forming a lattice that pinned the Skrull's arms to its sides. You will not dissolve yourself before I have answers. The Skrull bared teeth that were not human. Its eyes flashed with something like devotion. Monica raised her weapon steady. Where's the device? The Skrull's throat pulsed. Matt Murdock's voice sharpened. It's about to. Bucky lunged, slamming the shield over the Skrull's mouth and nose like a lid. A wet hiss. Green acid splattered against vibranium, smoking, trying to eat what couldn't be eaten. The Skrull's body spasmed, then went limp inside Doom's blue cage. Bucky yanked the shield away. The face was melting back into its true form, dying anyway, but slower. Hard case, Bucky said. Sam grabbed it and popped the latches. Inside sat a sleek, palm-sized machine that looked like a medical tool designed by someone who hated anatomy. Thin needles, a ring of light around a central lens, and a small speaker grill like it wanted to taste voices. Doom's eyes gleamed. An imprint device. Monica swallowed once, then nodded. That's what we called it. It copies biometric patterns, voice, behavioral cadence. If you have enough sample, you can wear a person-like clothing. Sam's face went tight. That's how they get past everyone. One of Monica's agents hurried over with a scorched tablet. Commander, this was in the server drawer. They didn't have time to wipe everything. The screen flickered, then stabilized into a list of names under a corrupted header. Compromised/pending. Most were half-garbled. Some weren't. Bucky's eyes moved down the readable lines, each one a bullet without sound. Sam Wilson monitored. Bucky felt Sam go still beside him. Then another name, clean as a knife cut. James Rhodes confirmed. Sam's breath hitched like the air had turned thick. No, Rhodey. Monica didn't soften. It could mean they replaced him, or it could mean they tried. Either way, they're close enough to put his name on a list. Thor's voice came low, grief threaded through thunder. The war is not on battlefields, it is in beds, at tables, in friendships. Bucky stared at the screen until it blurred. Steve's absence had been a wound he'd learned to walk on. Sam losing Rhodey would be something else, something that could crack the team before it properly formed. "We take this and we leave," Bucky said. "Now more are coming." Matthew's eyes flicked to the ceiling. "I feel movement above us, not ours." Monica looked at Bucky. "I'm not letting this disappear into a committee. I want in. You're already fighting the thing SWORD is afraid to name." Bucky hesitated. Trust didn't come easy to him. But courage wasn't absence of fear. It was doing the work while fear watched. "Then you follow orders," Bucky said, "and you don't lie to us." Monica nodded once. "Deal." They retreated through the tunnels as distant footsteps multiplied, as the air filled with the faint, familiar smell of acid and ozone. Back inside the embassy, Doom sealed the doors with a gesture that made the air snap. Sam stood apart, staring at the tablet like it might change its mind. Bucky approached quietly. "We don't know it's true." Sam's jaw flexed. "We don't know it's not." Bucky watched him, his friend, his partner, a man trying to become himself in a world that kept measuring him against a legend. "We'll verify, carefully." Before Sam could answer, Bucky's burner rang again. Yelena. Not a text, a call. Doom's blue wards didn't react. That meant nothing. Monica's eyes narrowed at the phone. If they have that imprint tech, they can lay a voice trap, get him talking, get access codes, locations, anything. Matt Murdock's head angled toward the ringing. Whoever it is, they're controlling their breathing. That's training. Or imitation, Doom murmured. Sam reached for the phone. Bucky caught his wrist. "If it's her, she'll understand caution. And if she's alive and needs help," Sam shot back, "she doesn't have time for my caution." His eyes met Bucky's fierce with something that looked like fear wearing armor. "You want trust? Then trust me." Bucky released him. Sam lifted the burner to his ear. "Hello," he said. For a heartbeat, only static answered. Then a woman's voice, familiar enough to hurt. "Sam," Elena Belova said, "do not speak names, just listen. They are using your voice next." Elena's voice came through the burner like it had crawled out of a vent. "Sam, do not speak names, just listen. They are using your voice next, not later, already." A pause, a breath held too carefully. "They're laying readers in the subway, new security gates. They aren't looking for weapons, they're collecting patterns. If you go down there, do not trust the scanners, trust people. And if you get a woman who sounds like me," her voice sharpened, "do not follow her." The line clicked dead. Sam stared at the phone as if it might ring again and offer mercy. "She's alive." That was her. "Could have been a recording," Monica said. Matt Murdock's head tilted, listening to the room more than the words. Not a recording. She adjusted to Sam's breathing. She was reacting in real time. Doom folded his arms, blue ward light crawling over the embassy ceiling like slow lightning. "How comforting. Your assassin friend lives long enough to be useful." Bucky cut in before Sam could bite back. "We're not debating her tone, we're moving." He pointed at the recovered imprint device on the table. "This thing pinged twice since we got back. Same interval. Doom, can you trace?" "I can do better." Doom tapped a finger against the device. A thin band of dark blue light wrapped around it and the speaker grill vibrated as if something on the other end hated being touched. "It is handshaking with a relay. Underground. Metallic infrastructure. A place where the city itself helps it hide." Matthew Darling, sitting cross-legged, palm down on the marble, opened his eyes. "Tracks. Rail lines. A hum running through the earth like a vein. I can follow it." Bucky nodded once. Orders came easy when he didn't let himself think about the shield. Same teams as Green Lantern, Michaela scouts, Matthew maps. Monica leads us to the right access point. Thor stays quiet unless it's life or death. Thor's mouth twitched, pained humor. "I will be as quiet as thunder." "And Sam," Bucky said, lowering his voice, "we set a trap for Rhodey. We don't accuse him over the phone. We don't warn whoever's listening. We get him to us in a place Doom controls." Sam's eyes flicked up. "You're asking me to lure my best friend into a cage." "I'm asking you to make sure it's him before they use him to burn you alive," Bucky said. "That's the job." They went down through a maintenance entrance Monica knew by smell more than signage: oil, wet stone, and old electricity. The city's noise thinned into the steady, stomach-deep groan of trains. At the edge of the active platform, new gates had been bolted in. sleek black arches with a small lens at eye level. A poster beside them read, "Keep New York Safe. QUICKSCAN entry." Michaela appeared at Bucky's shoulder without footsteps, visible again only because she chose to be. "Cute. They're selling fear like Metro cards." Her eyes went distant, focusing through people with that X-ray stare she never talked about. "Those gates aren't human tech. There's a second housing behind the lens, not MTA standard, and the maintenance guy over there." She nodded subtly toward a bored worker in a reflective vest. "His organs are wrong, shifted, like the hearing hall." Bucky tightened his grip on the shield. "You go invisible, get close, pull whatever's powering it." She vanished, air folding around her. Monica drew her sidearm but kept it low. "We're in public, if this turns into a firefight." "Then we survive it," Bucky said, "and we keep civilians breathing." Matthew crouched, fingers touching the tile. His eyes tracked vibrations like they were words. "There's a junction beneath us, old service corridor. Something's broadcasting down there," and his jaw clenched. "They moved a lot of metal recently, new brackets in the walls." "Antenna scaffolding," Doom murmured, "using your city's bones." A commuter stepped through the quick-scan gate. The lens flared green. No pause, no alert. He moved on. Another person followed. Same height, same coat, same gait. For a second it looked like a glitch in the world. Matt Murdock's head snapped toward the second. 2 heartbeats, identical cadence, that's trained. The second person turned, smiling at nobody. His eyes flicked over Bucky's face with the lazy confidence of someone who already knew his measurements. Michaela's voice whispered in Bucky's ear unseen. "I'm behind the vest guy. He's holding a transmitter. If I yank it, it'll pop." Bucky watched the crowd. A mother with a stroller. A kid chewing the edge of a metro pass. The kind of life that never made it into battle reports. "Not here," he murmured. The quick-scan lens flashed again, then dimmed like it had heard him. Sam's comm crackled once, then died. Monica's radio followed, hissing static. Doom's eyes narrowed, jamming. Matthew's hand flexed. The tiles under their feet trembled, subtle as a held breath. "They're shifting the rails, closing us in." Bucky's decision landed hard. "Now, Michaela, pull it. Matthew, seal the service stairwell. Thor, lights out if you have to. Sam, get people moving." Michaela yanked. A sharp blue-white spark snapped from the maintenance worker's vest. His skin rippled like oil on water. The illusion tore. Green flashed beneath. The worker's mouth opened, and a voice came out that wasn't his at all. "Captain America," it said, like it had practiced the syllables. "You're early." The quick-scan gates all lit at once. Lenses swiveling, tasting faces. Sam shoved 2 commuters back, wings flaring as a shield. "Everybody up the stairs, move." The second identical commuter, now smiling wider, raised a small handheld scanner and aimed it at Bucky. The device chirped pleasantly. "Approved." Bucky felt cold crawl up his spine. "It's spoofing biometrics." "Of course it is," Doom said, almost offended at the simplicity. Blue light snapped from his fingers, forming a barrier that shoved civilians toward the exit without touching them. The Skrull in the vest lunged for the gate housing. Michaela flickered into view mid-strike, bow staff cracking into its wrist. The scanner skittered across the tile. Matthew slammed his palm down. The ground bucked, and the service stairwell entrance behind the gate sealed shut as stone flowed up like a tide, hardening into a wall. "No reinforcements," Matthew said through gritted teeth. "Not from below." "Then they came from above," Monica muttered. A train roared into the station, wind screaming. People stumbled as the air pressure changed. Thor stepped onto the platform edge, shoulders squared, eyes wild for half a second. Then he forced himself steady. He lifted a hand, and the overhead lights shattered in a controlled line, plunging the platform into darkness. Panic rose. Bucky shouted over it. "Stay down, hands over your head." His voice cut through the crowd like a command he hated needing. In the dark, Michaela went invisible again. Her voice came from nowhere. "I'm on the gate hub. There's a cable running into the wall, old service duct." Bucky followed the cable with his eyes, then his body, shield first. A Skrull sprang from the shadows wearing an NYPD officer's face. It slammed into him with super soldier force. Bucky absorbed the hit, boots sliding on tile. His metal hand caught its throat. The skin beneath his fingers felt wrong, elastic, impatient. "Where's the relay?" Bucky demanded. The officer grinned. "Everywhere you are." "It's bad." Acid hissed across the shield rim. Steam burned his nostrils. Bucky drove his forehead into its nose hard. The face broke, green showing through. Sam swooped in low, wing blade catching the Skrull's elbow, forcing the acid-spitting mouth away from civilians. Monica fired twice, center mass careful to angle down. The Skrull collapsed, convulsing. Matthew's voice cut in. There, behind the ad wall, the metals singing. Michaela reappeared, already prying a panel free with gloved fingers. Behind it sat a compact relay box, pulsing with a soft green light like a heartbeat. Doom's blue sorcery wrapped it cautious. It's keyed to something vocal. Sam's expression tightened. My voice. The relay box clicked. A tiny speaker hissed, then played a clean, perfect line in Sam's tone. This is Falcon. Avengers are compromised. Stand down. Sam flinched like he'd been punched. Bucky took the relay from Doom's warded grip and slammed it into the ground. His shield came down once precise, brutal. The box shattered. Green light died. For a moment, there was only the fading scream of the departing train and the ragged breathing of civilians evacuating. Sam looked at Bucky. Rhodey, if they can do that. We still set the meeting, Bucky said. His voice softened just enough to be real. But not here. We do it in Doom's house on our terms. If Rhodey's him, he'll hate us for it later. If he's not. He didn't finish. Doom's eyes gleamed in the dark. I will prepare a room that punishes liars. Matt Murdock listened to the distant tunnels. We're not alone anymore. They're adjusting. They know we're hunting the veins. Bucky raised his shield, scanning the shadows where faces could be swapped like masks. Then we keep moving anyway. The shattered relay lay in pieces like a dead insect, but the air didn't relax. Matthew stayed crouched, palm on tile, eyes tracking Tremors the way other men tracked footprints. It's still talking, he said. Not here, deeper. Something else is pulsing, moving. Monica holstered her pistol and scanned the emptying platform. If there's another node, it'll hop once it knows we found this one. Bucky looked at the last civilians disappearing up the stairwell under Doom's warding push. Survival meant leaving before panic turned into a stampede, and it meant not letting the enemy choose the next room. Sam, Bucky said, rear guard, keep eyes on faces, no talking unless it's numbers. Sam's jaw worked like he wanted to argue the rules into being fair. Then he nodded. Wings folded tight, ready. Michaela, Bucky continued, your point. If you see green, you don't chase, you mark and move. She spun the bow staff once, the tip clicking softly. You're turning this into basic training. I'm turning it into us living, Bucky said. Matt Murdock tilted his head toward the tunnel mouth. There are footsteps below, not many, trying to sound like maintenance. He paused, listening deeper. And there's something wrong, like a heartbeat without a body. Doom stepped near the broken relay fragments. His gauntlet hovered, and dark blue light, cold as moonlit steel, threaded through the scraps. The blue didn't glow so much as it stained the air. A second later, it answered. A faint, delayed shimmer bloomed farther down the tunnel, as if the relay's death had thrown a stone into a distant pond. The echo was blue too, but not Doom's blue. It was a bruised, distorted hue, like someone had tried to counterfeit his sorcery and failed. Doom's eyes narrowed, pleased and offended at once. There, a resonance. Skrull engineering does not simply transmit, it remembers, it leaves an imprint. Thor had been quiet since the platform went dark. Now he stiffened as if something had bitten him. His gaze unfocused, his breathing turned shallow. Thor, Bucky said, keeping his voice even. On me, eyes. Thor didn't blink. His hands curled, and the air around his knuckles prickled. The tunnel lights above them, broken bulbs and emergency strips, flickered in a pattern that didn't match any wiring. Blue pulse, blue pulse, blue pulse. Thor's pupils dilated. I know this corridor, he said, voice low. I have walked it before. Sam shifted closer. We're under Midtown, man. Thor's jaw clenched as if fighting words out of his own mouth. No, I have been in halls that pretended to be safe. White rooms that turned into oceans. Friends who smiled and then, he swallowed hard. Nightmare's tricks, Mephisto's laughter behind a curtain. Doom's blue light tightened like a tether around Thor's wrist, not binding, anchoring. This is not a demon. It is technology scraping at your mind. You will not grant it the satisfaction of breaking you in a sewer. Thor blinked once twice, his breath steadied by sheer stubbornness. Bucky nodded, not softening, not mocking. Trust wasn't comfort, it was reliability. We keep moving. Thor stays centered. If you feel it again, you say blue and we stop. Clear. Thor's voice rasped, clear. They dropped off the platform into a maintenance hatch Monica found behind a service door with a SWORD key, override she shouldn't have had any more. The corridor beyond was damp, narrow, and stank of iron and old rain. Michaela vanished, her outline fading until only the soft scuff of boots betrayed her. "There's a camera down here," her voice whispered from nothing. "New, cheap housing, not city." Bucky raised 2 fingers hold. Sam mirrored it without thinking. Bucky registered the small victory. Sam was starting to move like a unit, not a solo act. Matthew's hand skimmed the concrete wall, and thin seams of rust in the rebar sang under his senses. "They reinforced this corridor," he murmured. "Recently, like they expected a lot of weight." "Or prisoners," Monica said. Ahead, the blue echo pulsed again, stronger. It ran along cables and pipes like a vein lighting up under skin. Doom lifted his palm, and his sorcery widened into a net dark blue threads that caught the echo's edges. His voice went softer, more dangerous. "There is a carrier, not stationary. The signal is being handed from node to node." Matt listened, then pointed. "Train wind, not from the main line lower, a maintenance rail." Bucky's mind built a map out of fragments. Nodes, handoffs, decoys. Skrulls didn't just hide, they moved the hiding place. A clang echoed ahead, deliberate. Then a voice, calm and familiar, floated out of the dark. "Buck, it's me. Steve." Bucky froze so hard it hurt. The tunnel narrowed. The air thickened, like the city had decided to press its weight down on his ribs. Sam turned his head slowly, eyes wide. "That's—" "Don't," Bucky cut in. The voice came again, closer. "James, you don't have to do this alone, come here." Thor's hand twitched toward a storm that wanted out. Michaela appeared suddenly, visible, eyes hard. "That's not Old Man Rogers, it's too clean, too staged." Matt's head angled, his expression sharpened with certainty. No heartbeat. Bucky exhaled through his nose, anger turning into action. "Formation. Sam left, Monica right. Matthew Seal behind us, slow pursuit. Doom, give me light." Doom's blue sorcery snapped forward like a whip, illuminating the tunnel. The Steve shape stood at the bend. The right height, the right slump of age, even the shieldless posture of a man who'd retired. It smiled with perfect warmth. Then the light caught the eyes, too reflective, like polished stones. The face rippled. Green bled through. The Skrull's smile didn't change. "He trained you to be loyal," it said in Steve's voice. "We trained ourselves to be believable." It raised a small puck-shaped device and tapped it to the wall. The blue echo jumped. Somewhere deeper, a second pulse answered, then began to move fast like a runner taking a handoff. "They're relocating," Monica snapped. Matthew slammed his palms down. The wall behind the Skrull bulged as metal within the concrete twisted under his will, rebar knitting into a jagged cage. The Skrull jerked back, surprised. Bucky surged forward, shield up, but the Skrull didn't fight. It bit down on something. Its throat convulsed. Bucky grabbed its jaw with his metal hand, prying, but the capsule was already dissolving. Acidic blood foamed at the mouth, spattering the concrete. Doom threw a blue shield around it containing the spray. "Suicide protocol," he hissed. The Skrull collapsed, melting into itself, taking whatever secrets it could into the drain. But the relocation pulse kept running. Michaela stared into the tunnel's deeper dark. Whatever's carrying it just accelerated. Matt listened, face tightening. A rail cart, 2 people on it, and one of them is humming. Sam's wings unfolded halfway, catching the damp air. "We chase, we split up, we risk losing each other." Bucky looked at the team, new, jagged, real. Not icons, survivors. He lifted 2 fingers, then pointed forward. "Move," he said. "We don't let them choose where this war happens." Steel screamed somewhere ahead. A thin, steady shriek that didn't belong to any subway Bucky had ever ridden. "Carts on the maintenance rail," Monica said, already running. Her flashlight beam jittered across wet concrete and bundled cables. "If it reaches the live line." "Then we're chasing blind in traffic," Sam finished. Bucky's boots slapped through puddles. The smell down here was old electricity and rust, like a wound that never closed. He kept the shield tight to his left side, not for bullets. There were too many angles for that. But for the moment something stepped out of the dark and made him choose. "Distance?" he asked. Matt Murdock's head tilted, tracking sound through layers of earth and metal. 30 yards, 2 riders. One's humming, not nervous. Intentional. Matthew Darling's eyes narrowed like he'd been punched. "That's a song." "What song?" Bucky asked. Matthew didn't answer. The muscles in his jaw worked, and for a second the rebar in the walls ticked like teeth. The tunnel split. A faded sign, half peeled off, pointed to an old service ramp. The cart's screech veered that way. Bucky raised 2 fingers, then chopped his hand left. Cut off. Doom, seal the main corridor behind us. Michaela, invisible, go high, find where this ramp meets the line. Sam, with me. Doom didn't argue. Dark blue light slid out of his palm and stitched itself into a lattice across the passage, turning open space into a hard, humming barrier. "Try not to trap us with them," Sam muttered. Doom's dry voice floated back. "Try not to die on municipal property." The ramp pitched upward, steep enough that the air changed. Less sewer, more ozone. Bucky heard it before he saw it. The cart ahead, a flatbed on narrow wheels, riding a single rail like it had somewhere urgent to be. 2 silhouettes on it, one standing with a hooked pole, the other sitting, head bowed, humming like the world couldn't touch them. Bucky grabbed the closest wall seam with his metal hand and hauled himself faster, shoulders burning in a way that reminded him he'd lived too many lives in too many wars. "Sam," he said, and didn't need to finish. Sam's wings snapped open in the cramped space, scraping sparks from cable trays. He surged forward, using the narrow tunnel like a wind funnel, and caught up enough to throw his arm out. The standing rider turned. For half a heartbeat, it was a man in an MTA jacket. Then the skin shimmered wrong, like paint over glass. It smiled at Sam with Sam's own smile. Sam flinched, just a fraction, and Bucky saw the insult land. "Don't look at it," Bucky barked. "Look at the hands." The Skrull raised the hooked pole and swung. Sam ducked. The pole caught the edge of his wing and tore a strip of carbon fiber free with a sound like a bone snapping. Bucky jumped. The ramp ended in open track, live track. A third rail glowed dully along the side, humming with the kind of power that killed without drama. He landed on the flatbed with a crunch of knees and metal, shield up. The sitting rider didn't move. The humming continued, soft and steady. The standing Skrull jabbed for his throat. Bucky caught the pole with his vibranium edge, twisted, and drove the shield forward. The Skrull's ribs caved with a wet give. It didn't go down. It laughed in Steve's voice. Bucky shoved the sound out of his head and went mechanical, wrist, elbow, shoulder, the way he taught himself to survive when he couldn't afford to feel. He hooked the Skrull's arm, snapped it, and kicked. The Skrull toppled off the flatbed, and its body hit the third rail. A flash of green-white light, a sharp pop, and the smell of cooked meat flooded the tunnel. Sam landed behind Bucky, boots skidding. "That's one." "Where's the other?" Bucky turned. The seated rider lifted its head. It was Leo, darling. Only it was. Leo's face was too smooth, like someone had remembered him from a distance. His eyes were wrong in the same way the fake Steve's had been, reflective, cold. The humming stopped. The not Leo spoke in a voice that tried hard to be gentle. "Matthew, you're close. I can feel you in the ground." Matthew's voice echoed down the tunnel raw. "Don't use my brother's face." The not Leo looked past Bucky to the darkness behind. "We didn't choose it to hurt you. We chose it because it works." A click sounded under Bucky's boot. He froze. A puck-sized device sat bolted to the flatbed's deck, green light pulsing, wires sunk into the metal. Monica's shout carried from the ramp mouth. "Bucky, that's a dead switch if the cart stops." The not Leo finished almost kindly. "It detonates." Bucky's mind ran the math instantly. Speed keeps the switch depressed. Stop, it lifts. Lift, it blows. On a live track with a third rail and old tunnels full of gas pockets. Sam leaned close, voice low. "We can't ride this into a station." "We don't have a choice," Bucky said. "We ride it to wherever they want, then we steal the choice back." The cart shot out into a broader tunnel where subway traffic lived. A distant headlight rounded a bend, bright and fast. Matt Murdock's voice came through Monica's comm tight. "Incoming train, 90 seconds." Thor appeared at the ramp, moving like a storm trying to act human. His eyes locked on the oncoming light, then on Bucky's cart. "I can stop it." "Not with lightning near that rail," Monica yelled. Doom's blue light flared in the distance, a precise, controlled glow. "I can lift the cart." The not Leo smiled wider. "And if you do, your sorcery touches the switch. It reads energy. It interprets. It triggers." Bucky didn't like how sure it sounded. Michaela's voice whispered from nowhere, right at his ear. "I found the real Leo." Bucky kept his eyes forward. Where? In an old mail platform ahead, crate with a biometric latch, human heartbeat, drugged. Sam's face tightened. So this is bait. It's leverage, Michaela corrected. And there are 10 rings guys down there too, real ones, not green. Matthew's footsteps thundered closer, concrete groaning under him as if the tunnel wanted to rise to meet his rage. Leo. The oncoming train horn blared, deafening, a beast in a metal throat. Bucky stared at the third rail, at the dead switch, at the fake brother wearing a real boy's face. The not Leo spoke again, voice turning businesslike. Bring us Victor Von Doom, alone. His blue light trick is the key. Do that and the crate opens. Refuse and your brother never wakes up. Doom's voice, carried by the comm, was calm in the way only arrogant men could be calm. You presume much. The not Leo glanced toward the ramp where Doom stood. We presume survival. You taught your world that power is the only language worth learning. Matthew reached the live tunnel edge and stopped short, as if the third rail itself had yelled at him. His hands shook, and the metal in the walls answered, ticking louder. Bucky met his eyes across the gap of track and light. He didn't soften his voice, but he made it steady. Matthew, look at me. We're getting him back. You don't make deals alone. The train headlight grew, swallowing the tunnel. Sam grabbed the cart's side rail. Buck, we need a move. Bucky tightened his grip on the shield until it felt like an extension of his bones. Thor, he shouted, when I say you make a wall, not lightning, wind, pressure, anything that doesn't feed that switch. Thor's jaw clenched. I can do that. Doom, Bucky said. Get ready to cut the track ahead, not the cart, the track. Doom's laugh was short, almost appreciative. Finally, a practical request. The not Leo watched Bucky like it was studying a lock. Bucky watched it back. He'd survived wars that wanted him dead and peace that wanted him quiet. He could survive a tunnel. But survival wasn't the goal. Trust was. And right now, the whole team was balanced on a dead switch, racing a train, with a boy in a crate waiting to be traded like a weapon. Bucky lifted his chin toward Matthew, a silent order and a promise at once. Hold. The oncoming train screamed closer. Bucky whispered to Sam, when we hit the platform you fly, you grab the real Leo, I'll keep the switch down. Sam's eyes widened. That leaves you riding a bomb. Bucky didn't look away from the not Leo smile. Yeah, that's the job. The cart hurtled toward the old mail platform lights ahead, dim, forgotten, and the trap waited there like an open mouth. The cart hit the abandoned mail platform like a thrown brick. Bucky braced, shield wedged against the side rail. The dead switch puck under his boot pulsed green, patient as a heartbeat that wasn't his. Matthew, he shouted. Matthew Darling didn't step onto the live track. He didn't need to. He raised both hands, palms down, and the metal beneath Bucky's boot answered with a groan. Rebar in the platform's cracked concrete shivered up through the deck like knuckles. The puck sank half an inch, pressed by force no human muscle could manage. Monica slid to a stop at the platform edge, breath steaming. You're holding the trigger. Matthew's voice came out strained, like he was talking through teeth. I'm holding the world right here. Don't make me laugh. Bucky felt it. The switch wasn't just depressed. It was imprisoned. Sam landed hard beside him, one wing damaged, the other flared for balance. Then we dismount. Now. Thor arrived at the mouth of the ramp like a storm trying to behave. He set his hands out and the air thickened, pressure, not lightning, turning the tunnel behind into a cushion against the oncoming train's rush. Doom stepped onto the platform with the calm of a man entering his own courtroom. Dark blue light traced a thin circle around his boots, warding the damp air into something cleaner. Across from them, the thing wearing Leo Darling's face smiled. Touching, it said, a family reunion. Bucky sprang first, because if he waited for the words to burrow into Matthew's head, the fight would already be lost. His shield clipped the imposter's jaw. The face rippled, skin trying to remember what it was pretending to be. The Skrull stumbled, then snapped back with a short blade, moving like it knew Bucky's habits, like it had watched. Michaela flickered into existence behind it, her suit bleeding back from invisible to black and red. She drove her bow staff into the Skrull's knee with a crack and discharged a taser pulse. The Skrull hissed, not pain, not quite, anger. Real Leo, Michaela said into comms, voice sharp. Crate on the far side, 2 armed men with ring tattoos, not green, human. Bucky's eyes flicked to Matthew. Stay on that switch. Matthew's hands shook harder. Go. Sam launched, skimming low over the third rail with careful wing beats, snatching a dropped flashlight from the ground midair, and hurling it to smash the lock panel on the crate. The 10 Rings men opened fire. Thor's hospital scrubs fluttered as he stepped between bullets and crate, taking the rounds on his forearms and chest like they were insults. Enough. He swept one arm. Wind punched the gunmen off their feet. One slammed into a pillar and went limp. The other tried to crawl, reaching for something at his belt. Doom's blue light lanced out and pinned the man's wrist to the concrete, with a surgical precision that made Bucky's skin crawl. "Do not," Doom said mildly. Bucky grabbed the fake Leo by the throat, drove it backward, and slammed it into the crate's metal corner. "Where is my brother?" Matthew shouted from the cart, voice cracking. "You're asking the wrong species," the Skrull coughed, still smiling with Leo's mouth. Matt Murdock moved like a shadow along the platform's edge, head angled, listening to everything at once. "Its heartbeat's too steady," he said. "No adrenaline spike. It's trained." Bucky tightened his grip, then train it to talk. Michaela's fingers flew across the crate latch. "Biometric. It wants a palm." Monica swore. "We don't have time." Doom reached out. "No," Bucky snapped. "Not your magic. It reads energy. We don't know." "I know," Doom replied, offended by the premise. He didn't use sorcery. He used a thin metal pick from his coat, slid it into the seam, and applied pressure with an engineer's patience. The latch clicked. The crate door swung open. Leo Darling spilled out half-conscious, wrists zip-tied, pupils blown wide from sedatives. His chest rose shallowly, and for a beat he didn't look like anyone at all, just a kid pulled from a bad dream. Matthew made a sound Bucky couldn't place. Not relief, something older. Leo blinked at the light and whispered, "Maddie." Matt Murdock's head snapped toward him. "Wait." Everyone froze. Matt's voice went tight. His heart rate is wrong, too slow, too flat. Bucky's shield came up without permission from his conscience. It would take one throw, one clean decision. Sam's eyes flashed. "Bucky." Michaela stepped between them, visor down, and her X-ray vision tracked through skin, muscle, bone. "He's human," she said instantly. "Organs match. No rearrangement, no shimmer." Monica knelt, fingers on Leo's neck. "He's drugged, that's why." Matt's jaw tightened, shame passing across his face in a quick, controlled wave. "I heard." "You heard a sedative," Bucky said, voice low, forcing his arm to lower. "And we almost killed a kid because we need certainty." Thor's eyes flicked to Bucky, something like understanding behind the grief. "The line is thin." "The line is us," Bucky answered. Then he turned back to the Skrull. The imposter's skin fought to keep Leo's face, as if it enjoyed the cruelty. Bucky dragged it into the center of the platform. Doom drew a circle of blue light around the Skrull's feet, and the air inside it thickened, like truth had weight. "Speak," Doom said, "or you will be made to." The Skrull spat green-tinted saliva. "Your spell won't help. We practiced pain." Matt stepped closer, chin lifted. "Then don't listen for pain. Listen for pride." Bucky crouched, meeting the Skrull's eyes. "Who are you?" "A courier," it said, and the word sounded rehearsed. "Like Fisk was, like Kane was, messengers, disposable." "Disposable doesn't build a network like this," Monica said. "Who's running it?" The Skrull's pupils narrowed. "A council and a clock." Bucky felt Matthew's power still holding the bomb behind him, a trembling leash. "What clock?" The Skrull smiled again, and this time it let Leo's face melt away. Green skin, ridged chin, eyes like wet stones. "Summit week, when your world gathers to promise itself safety." Sam's breath caught. "The NATO Security Summit in Brussels." The Skrull tilted its head. "Half your escort is already ours, half your airspace, half your communications. Do you think we needed to win battles? We only needed to sign paperwork." Doom's expression didn't change, but the blue light around his ringed brighter. "Half," he repeated softly, as if calculating what half of an army meant in blood. Matt's voice was a knife. "Names, give us names." The Skrull laughed. "Names are for humans, we wear roles." Bucky stood slow, the weight of the shield in his hand suddenly heavier than vibranium. "We're late," he said. Monica stared at Leo, then at the tunnel beyond, as if she could see continents through concrete. "If half NATO's compromised, they don't need Fisk anymore. They need a handover." The oncoming train roared past in the adjacent tunnel, wind slamming through the platform like a warning. Behind Bucky, Matthew's voice shook. "I can't hold this forever." Bucky looked at Leo, alive barely, and then at the Skrull, smiling, unafraid. Trust, he thought, wasn't a feeling. It was a choice you made under pressure. Sam, Bucky said, voice steady. Get Leo out. Thor, escort. Monica, burn every channel you have to Brussels quietly. Doom, get your truth room ready. We're taking this one with us. Doom's dry wit returned like a blade sliding into a sheath. At last, a guest. The Skrull leaned forward within the blue circle. You can drag me anywhere, Captain. The war won't wait for your morals. Bucky lifted the shield, not to strike, but to block the future for one more second. Yeah, he said, neither will we. Doom's truth room was not a room so much as a decision. No windows, one table bolted through marble, a ring of dark blue light carved into the floor like an oath. The air inside it felt heavier, as if lies had mass. Bucky watched the Skrull courier sit with its hands on the table, shackled in steel and something subtler. It wore its own skin now, ridged chin bare, eyes steady. Behind the one-way glass, Sam stood with Monica and Murdoch. Thor waited near the door, shoulders packed into hospital scrubs that looked like they'd lose a fight with his biceps any second. Michaela leaned against the wall, arms folded, face unreadable. Matthew wasn't here. He was upstairs with Leo, refusing to leave his brother's side long enough to watch another face lie. Doom paced at the edge of the blue circle, as if even he respected its boundary. You may answer, he said to the Skrull, or you may discover what mathematics does to the concept of time. The Skrull smiled. Threats, how human. Bucky set his palms on the table. The vibranium under his gloves hummed faintly, a reminder of a promise he hadn't asked for. Brussels, how many? The Skrull's eyes flicked, not fear, calculation. Murdoch's voice came through the intercom, low. It's thinking of something it won't say. Monica cut in blunt. We can't show up with vibes. We need proof that survives politics. Sam's jaw worked. Or we warn them now and take the hit on proof. That was the choice. Warn Brussels and light every fuse, or hunt the council's node in New York first and risk being too late. Bucky looked at the Skrull. Fisk, Kane, messengers, so who gives the messages? The Skrull's grin thinned. You're late, Captain. Your shield is nostalgia. This is logistics. Doom's blue light sharpened, a blade without metal. Answer him. The Skrull's posture didn't change, but Bucky saw its throat work. The council does not meet in your cities. We do not need to. Then why set up relays here? Monica asked. The Skrull's eyes slid to her, assessing the uniform patch like it meant something. Because your planet is loud, it broadcasts itself into surrender. Bucky leaned closer. Where's the node? Silence. Sam's voice turned hard. Bucky, if we wait. Bucky didn't look back. Monica, quiet warning now. Monica hesitated once, the kind of hesitation that meant she knew the cost. Then she pulled a secure handset from her jacket and began tapping a message that looked like nothing. A weather report, a shipping update, a sentence that meant, your leaders might not be yours. Sam watched her fingers. If they intercept. They already intercept, Monica said. This just gives the right people a chance to be suspicious. Doom's gaze cut to Bucky, amused in that dry, aristocratic way. Splendid. You have chosen both options. Very American of you. Bucky ignored him. Last chance, he told the Skrull. Node, or you stay in this circle until you forget what you came here wearing. Michaela pushed off the wall. Let me talk to it. Bucky didn't like it, but he nodded. She stepped into the blue ring with the calm of someone who'd been trained to enter rooms that killed people. Her voice dropped, conversational. You don't look like a fanatic. You look like a professional. The Skrull's eyes narrowed. You know what professionals hate, Michaela continued. Being left behind when the plan moves on. The Skrull's mouth twitched. Murdoch's voice, a whisper through the intercom. It reacted to left behind. Bucky exhaled once. They'll burn you, like Kane burned, like the fake Steve burned. Tell us where you're feeding your council and you get to live long enough to regret it. For the first time, the Skrull's certainty cracked. Not much. A hairline fracture. Pier 9, it said finally. Rutherford, a safe house, not a meeting, a conduit. Doom's eyes flashed with cold satisfaction. Excellent. Trap, Sam muttered. Everything is, Bucky said. We go anyway. Rutherford Pier 9 smelled like salt and rot and money. The building above the pier wore a legitimate sign. Import office. 3 floors, dark windows. Inside, the first hallway was too clean and too quiet, as if sound had been negotiated away. Michaela vanished, her suit bleeding into nothing. 2 heartbeats, she murmured in their comms. No 4, one's wrong, too steady. Murdoch's head tilted. 6. One is holding its breath. Thor rolled his shoulders, trying to keep the storm in his chest from showing on his hands. Then we greet them. Bucky raised a fist and the team moved. Matthew wasn't with them, but the floor still felt like it remembered him. Metal bones under concrete, waiting to be commanded. Bucky missed that certainty. He missed Steve too, in the quiet way you miss sunlight when you're underground. They breached the door. The first Skrull came at Sam wearing an NYPD tactical vest and Sam's own voice. "Wilson, stand down, you're compromised." Sam flinched, not because he believed it, but because hearing your voice used as a weapon always lands somewhere tender. Bucky's shield slammed the Skrull into the wall before it finished the sentence. A second Skrull threw a palm-sized projector that bloomed into a dozen false heat signatures down the corridor. "Spoofs," Monica snapped. "Don't chase dots." Doom's hands rose, blue light threading the air like precise circuitry. He didn't blast, he mapped. The false signatures peeled away under his sorcery like cheap paint. Thor stepped forward, and instead of lightning he exhaled. Wind. Pressure. The hall's loose papers and dust lifted, swirling into a visible current that revealed where bodies actually stood. Michaela reappeared behind a third figure, human shape, human suit, and drove her taser into the base of its skull. Green blood splattered the floor. "Down," she said, "not dead." Bucky reached the back office and found the reason for the pier. Crates stacked like a small private war, each one stamped with custom seals and innocuous labels. Inside the open crate, alien metal pulsed with familiar green. A man stood over it. He wore a tailored coat and a face that looked like it belonged on a campaign poster. His hands were empty, relaxed. "Commander," Doom said softly, as if recognizing rank by posture. The man smiled. "Ambassador," his voice carried the polish of diplomacy. "You're early." Bucky's instincts screamed, "Hands where I can see them." The commander lifted his palms. "Fisk was a messenger. He moved your criminals like chess pieces. He was useful until he was." Sam edged closer, wings half spread. "Then what's the real play?" The commander's eyes flicked to the crates. "A handover." Monica's throat tightened. "Define that." "A signature," the commander said. "A photograph, a speech about unity. Your summit week is a ceremony you built to reassure yourselves. We simply attend as you." Murdoch's voice was razor-thin. "And after?" The commander's smile returned, patient. "After, your satellites accept new keys. Your air defenses accept new orders. Your militaries receive instructions in voices they have trusted for decades. No invasion, no war, just compliance." Bucky felt Sam's anger like heat beside him. Doom took one step forward. "Where is the relay?" The commander glanced at Doom, measuring. "Not here, Newark. A rebuilt Stark-era facility you forgot you rebuilt. Your world loves monuments." Bucky's comm pinged. A single line from Monica's handset, forwarded from her Brussels contact. "Received. Moving." It didn't mean safety. It meant the clock had started. Outside, sirens began to rise, too fast, too coordinated. Someone had called them in with perfect authority. Sam looked at Bucky. "They're framing us again." Bucky stared at the commander, then at the crates, then at the hallway they'd have to survive to leave with a prisoner who could change the world if they kept him breathing. "Zip him," Bucky ordered. "We take him alive." Thor's eyes flicked toward the ceiling, listening to approaching boots. "And if we cannot?" Bucky tightened his grip on the shield. "Courage didn't mean you weren't afraid. It meant you moved anyway." "We can," he said. "We have to." Sirens multiplied outside Rutherford Pier, 9 like a flock of metal birds, answering a single whistle. Bucky kept one hand on the Skrull commander's collar and the other on his shield strap. The prisoner's wrists were zip-tied, then zip-tied again with a Latverian filament that glimmered blue when it tightened. "Those are not NYPD sirens," Monica said, listening to a frequency only she could hear through her earpiece. "That's a private band. Somebody's steering the response." "Of course they are," Doom murmured. He didn't sound afraid. He sounded inconvenienced. Boots hit the stairwell. Someone shouted, "Avengers!" on the ground, in a voice that carried authority, and just enough synthetic distortion to make Matt Murdoch's head tilt. "Not human," Matt said, "or not the voice's original owner." Sam's wings flexed once, half deployed. "They're trying to make us the headline." Bucky shoved the commander forward. "Then we don't give them the photo." Michaela flickered invisible, her outline dissolving like heat haze. "I'll clear the back." Thor stepped into the hallway and exhaled. The air pressure changed. Paper scraps lifted off the floor and streamed toward the true bodies coming down the stairs, outlining them in dust like a storm drawing borders. Two cops appeared in the swirl, then one stuttered, skin rippling green for a fraction of a second. A Skrull, impatient. Bucky didn't waste the moment. He threw the shield low. It ricocheted off the stairwell rail and took both legs out from under the first figure. Before the second could raise a weapon, Matthew Darling slammed his palm to the concrete. Rebar screamed up through the floor, wrapping a torso like a steel vine. "Move," Bucky ordered. They pushed through the warehouse's rear-loading corridor where salt air knifed in from the river. Michaela reappeared by a rolling door, panting once. Two vans, one's empty, one's full of people pretending they're not. "Journalists?" Sam asked. "Something like that," she said. "I'm not giving them a close-up." Doom lifted a hand. Dark blue light stitched itself into a circle in the air. Mathematics turned into geometry, turned into a door that shouldn't exist. The edges hummed like a power line. Monica stared. "You can do that across the Atlantic." Doom's dry smile didn't reach his eyes. "I can do many things. I do not enjoy them all." Bucky tightened his grip on the prisoner. "Brussels," he said. "Now." The commander's comm returned, almost bored. "Too late." "We'll see," Bucky said, and marched him into Doom's impossible doorway. The world became cold blue distance. Sound dampened, time stretched, the kind of corridor you felt in your teeth. Thor swayed once, jaw clenched, fighting something private. "Blue," Bucky said sharply. Thor's eyes found his. He nodded, anchored. "Blue." They stepped out behind a security barrier in Brussels, rain misting the pavement. The summit complex loomed ahead, all glass and flags and cameras. A city of careful smiles. Murdoch turned his face toward the building. Too many heartbeats, too synchronized. Sam's gaze locked on the main entrance where motorcades slid in, polished and slow. If they sign whatever they're here to sign, it's not just keys. It's legitimacy. The Skrull commander's lips curled. "Your species loves ceremony. It makes conquest polite." Bucky leaned close enough to smell the alien's breath, metallic like old coins. "Then we crashed the party." They moved in a wedge. Monica flashing credentials that should have opened doors. Doom gliding like he owned the corridors. Sam and Thor looking like a storm that learned to wear a badge. Michaela vanishing and reappearing wherever a camera needed to stop seeing. Matthew's steps heavy, as if the building listened to him. Inside the auditorium, the air was warm and expensive. Translators murmured. Delegates shifted papers like shields. On the dais, a familiar armor silhouette stood near a row of flags, war machine, shoulder plates gleaming. Rhodey. Sam's chest hitched. The look in his eyes wasn't fear. It was the old ache of not being able to protect the people who made you who you are. "Rhodey," Sam breathed, and then caught himself as if names were live wires. Murdoch's jaw tightened. His heartbeat is steady, too steady. Bucky didn't have time to be gentle. "We don't assume, we verify." The commander laughed softly. "You cannot verify fast enough." A flash-popped camera, then another. A journalist leaned too far over the aisle and fired a needle the size of a splinter. It hit the commander's neck. Bucky felt the body go limp in his grip, and then the skin loosened as if it had been a coat. Green seeped out, hissing, turning the zip ties to sludge. "Self-erase," Monica snapped. Doom's blue light surged, trying to cage the dissolving flesh. Too late. The commander collapsed into a puddle of alien chemistry. Something hard clinked on the marble, a tooth capsule. Bucky scooped it up with his metal fingers and crushed it just enough to split the casing. A sliver of translucent text slid out, pulsing once like a heartbeat. The auditorium lights cut. Then a voice filled the dark, Sam's voice, amplified, perfect. "NATO security detained the enhanced individuals. They are Skrull collaborators." For half a second, the room believed it. Gun safeties clicked off. Sam froze, face tightening as if someone had reached inside him and pulled a string. "That's not me." "I know," Bucky said, loud enough for the nearest guards to hear. "That's why you don't shoot." A delegate screamed. A bodyguard did fire into the ceiling, panic ricocheting through the crowd. Michaela reappeared on the dais behind War Machine, invisible flicker gone. She pressed her taser staff to a seam in the armor. Rhodey War Machine turned his head too smoothly. "Sam," the armored figure said, voice warm with history. "Buddy, don't do this." Murdoch's face hardened. It's copying memory, not feeling it. Sam's wings snapped open, shielding civilians from the guards who didn't know who to trust. Rhodey, say something only you'd say. The armor paused one fraction too long. Michaela struck. Electricity crawled over the metal. The figure convulsed. Then the faceplate peeled back and the skin beneath rippled green. Sam made a sound that didn't become a word. The Skrull in War Machine armor lunged for the nearest delegate, using a human body as a consequence. Bucky hurled his shield. It took the Skrull's forearm clean and pinned the armor to a podium, but the creature kept moving anyway, shoulders twisting in a way a human skeleton couldn't. Matthew slammed both fists down. The marble floor bucked, rising into a waist-high ridge that split the dais from the delegates like a sudden canyon. "Evac corridor," Monica shouted, already herding people toward a service exit. Doom's voice cut through the chaos, smooth and terrible. "Enough! I can seal this building." Blue light flared at his fingertips, eager. Lines began etching themselves into the air, an immense circle, a containment geometry big enough to swallow the entire hall. Sam looked at the growing lattice and understood first. Victor, people are still inside. "They will be," Doom replied, eyes cold. "And so will the Skrulls." Thor stepped beside Bucky, rainwater still on his shoulders from the portal. "If he closes it," Thor said quietly, "the ones wearing our faces do not escape." "And the ones wearing our flags don't either," Sam snapped. Bucky's mind did what it always did under fire, narrowed the world into options and costs. Doom's spell would be clean in the way avalanches were clean. Sam's plan would be messy, slow, human. A guard stumbled, bleeding from a ricochet. A delegate crawled beneath Matthew's stone ridge, sobbing. Michaela dragged a child-sized translator out of a crush of bodies, coughing. Bucky looked at Doom. "Can you shape it?" Doom's mouth tightened. At this scale, precision is indulgent. Bucky looked at Sam. Sam was already moving, wings out, taking bullets he couldn't afford. He wasn't waiting for permission. He was building his name in the only currency that mattered. Precision, Bucky decided. The word felt like jumping without knowing the ground would be there. "Sam, you take evac. Monica, get every camera on us, no cuts. Matt, call tells. Michaela, find the ones trying to vanish. Matthew, hold the exits without crushing anyone." Doom's eyes flashed insult, then calculation. "And me?" "You're the net," Bucky said. "Not the bomb, save who we can, cage who we must." Doom's blue geometry shivered, then rewove itself, smaller circles, compartmentalized doors instead of walls. In the confusion, the Skrull in War Machine armor tore itself free, shedding pieces of stolen metal, sprinting toward a service corridor. Murdoch's head snapped. "It's running, and it has a transmitter." Bucky chased, boots pounding, shield back on his arm like an oath he didn't get to set down. The corridor ended at a loading bay where a diplomatic van waited with its engine already running. The Skrull leapt inside. Bucky slammed the shield into the van's side. Metal screamed. The door buckled. Through the cracked window he saw a hand, green, holding a card the color of old glass, stamped with a Stark-era Access emblem. "Newark." The van lurched, tires squealing. Bucky threw himself onto the hood, fingers biting into rain-slick steel. The world narrowed to wind and traction and survival. In his earpiece, Monica's voice cut in, breathless. Satellite uplink just shifted. Someone's rerouting command traffic through New Jersey. Sam's voice, strained but steady. "Bucky, Brussels is bleeding, but it's holding. Go." Bucky stared at the Access emblem, at the van's speed climbing, at the fact that wars didn't start with explosions anymore. They started with signatures. "Team," Bucky said, teeth clenched against the wind, "we're going home." The van bucked over potholes. Bucky's metal fingers dug into the hood seam, and rain turned the world into a smear of streetlights. Ahead, fencing, a Stark-era logo half-sanded off a rebuilt facility that still carried Tony's fingerprints in its angles. Newark, the place you hid a war when you wanted it to look like a renovation. Bucky lifted the shield with one arm and slammed it edge first into the asphalt. Vibranium bit, sparks fanned. The van fishtailed, screamed, and stopped sideways against the gate. The driver, War Machine armor in pieces, green skin under a torn collar, vaulted the fence like a gymnast and vanished into the compound. Bucky rolled off the hood and came up running. A circle of dark blue light tore open beside him. Doom stepped through as if doorways were opinions. Sam followed, wings tight to fit, Monica at his shoulder with a SWORD rifle, Matt Murdoch's head already angled toward heartbeats, Thor in scrubs that looked ridiculous until lightning crawled across his forearms, and Matthew Darling bringing the ground with him, each step a quiet threat. Signals inside, Monica said. Uplink spooling minutes. Doom looked at the building and then at Bucky. I can fold this structure into a closed geometry. Nothing leaves, nothing survives. Sam's jaw flexed. Rhodey might be in there, and whoever they took to build the voice models. Doom didn't blink. Survival is often purchased with strangers. Bucky watched the windows, too clean, too new, and remembered Brussels. The moment a room had almost believed a lie because it sounded familiar. We're not buying it that way, Bucky said. We go in, we pull out who we can. Victor, hold your spell, be ready if we fail. Doom's mouth tightened, insult fighting strategy. You ask me to trust you with the planet. Bucky didn't look away. I'm asking you to trust the shield means something. Thor exhaled, and the air steadied like a storm choosing restraint. They breached through a side service door Monica blew with a charge that kissed the lock instead of tearing the frame. Inside smelled like ozone and fresh paint, as if someone had tried to scrub history off the walls. The first hallway had stark white panels and new black cameras mounted where old ones had been. Michaela was already gone, invisible, a soft static in the comms. Two guards at the corner, her whisper came. Both wrong, they're rehearsing. Matt listened. No heart rhythm variation, they're calm. Bucky advanced anyway. At the corner, the guards raised rifles and spoke in Sam's voice. Stand down. You are compromised. Sam's wings snapped open. I'm right here. Matthew slammed a hand to the wall. Steel studs inside the drywall twisted outward like thorns, pinning rifles to palms without breaking bones. Thor shoved the air. Both Skrulls hit the floor hard enough to rattle teeth. They didn't bleed red. Bucky didn't stop to finish them. Uplink room, he said. Monica led them down an emergency stairwell where the signal grew louder in her headset until it became a headache. They're routing through a Stark satellite maintenance link, she said. Old infrastructure, new permissions. Stolen voices, Matt murmured. Stolen authority. The stairwell opened into a wide lab space repurposed into a server farm. Banks of humming racks sat under a glass mezzanine. In the center, a ring-shaped emitter pulsed green, every beat like a throat clearing. And beneath it, strapped into chairs with biometric harnesses, were humans. Rhodey was among them, eyes open, face bruised, mouth gagged. Nearby, two suit-wearing officials Bucky recognized from hearings. Another chair held a woman with blonde hair matted to her cheek, Elena Belova, conscious enough to glare murder through tape. Sam made a sound like a swallowed shout. A dozen Skrulls stood between the team and the chairs, some in lab coats, some in security armor, all wearing faces like costumes. The half-armored War Machine Skrull stepped onto the mezzanine and raised a Stark access card like a blessing. Listen, it said in Rhodey's voice perfect. This is how you lose. You cannot shoot a signature. Doom's fingers lit blue. The geometry of his spell began to draw itself in the air, lines so precise they looked inevitable. Bucky felt the temptation in the room. End it cleanly. Kill the relay, kill the witnesses, stop the signal. Elena's eyes found his. She shook her head, furious, even gagged. Sam stepped closer to the hostages, wings half raised as if he could physically block a decision. Bucky. Trust, Bucky thought, not blind, earned. Thor, Bucky said. Wind, no lightning, keep the racks from arcing. Thor nodded once, blew. Matthew lifted the floor under the chairs, gentle. Matthew's hands trembled, then steadied. Stone rose in a smooth platform, bringing the hostages up and away from stray rounds. Matt called targets. Monica jammed their outbound. Monica's device screamed as she hit it against the emitter frequency. The green pulse stuttered. Doom's blue spell flared brighter anyway. Bucky faced him. Victor, not yet. Doom's eyes were ice. You are choosing pain. I'm choosing people, Bucky said. Shape your net, cage the relay, leave an exit. For a heartbeat, it looked like Doom would do what he wanted. Then the blue geometry shifted, tightened into a lattice around the ring emitter instead of swallowing the entire room. Doors of light opened along the walls, angled toward the stairwell. Do not make me regret this, Doom said. The fight broke like a wave. Skrulls rushed the lattice, trying to overload it with their green tech. Sam took the high line, wings battering rifles aside without killing. Thor's wind slammed bodies into walls with controlled force. Matt moved like a metronome, baton cracking wrists before triggers could pull. Bucky went straight for the mezzanine. The War Machine Skrull tried to speak again, Sam's voice now pleading. Bucky, stop. Bucky threw the shield through the railing. It cut the access card in half midair, then ricocheted into the Skrull's chest. The creature folded, green skin flashing through borrowed armor. Below, Michaela appeared at the emitter, visible now, suit slick with sweat, bow staff jammed into the relay's core. You stole my face, she muttered and yanked. The relay screamed. The green pulse collapsed into a dead flicker. For one ugly second, Bucky thought she'd run with the core. Instead, she tossed it to Monica. Evidence, before Doom decides evidence is inconvenient. Monica caught it like it could bite. Bucky dropped to the hostages. He tore Rhodey's gag free. Rhodey coughed, eyes locking on Sam. Man, you look terrible. Sam laughed once broken. You're real. Yeah, Rhodey rasped. Real enough to hate this chair. Elena spat tape off her mouth with Bucky's help. Next time you get a warning, American metal arm, you listen faster. Noted, Bucky said. A Skrull scientist in a lab coat crawled from behind a rack, hands up, green, trembling. Its face couldn't decide what to be and settled on nothing. We did not all vote for conquest, it said in careful English. Some of us were told Earth was shelter, then they turned shelter into a knife. Doom's blue light snapped to its throat. Bucky raised a hand. No. Doom looked at him, offended by mercy. Bucky held the stare until Doom's light dimmed a fraction. The scientist pushed a small drive across the floor with shaking fingers. Names, roots, the ones still buried, and a place where our children are hidden from the council. Trust again, Bucky thought. Risky, necessary, the only way wars ended instead of repeating. Sirens rose outside, real ones this time, messy and human. Monica pocketed the drive. We can extract before response teams arrive, but if they've compromised dispatch. We move, Bucky said. They guided the freed hostages through Doom's light doors, out into rain that smelled like gasoline and second chances. Behind them, the lattice around the relay tightened until the ring collapsed into itself, not an explosion, an ending. Doom's precision held. On the street, Sam kept a hand on Rhodey's shoulder like an anchor. Thor stood watch, breathing through ghosts. Matthew leaned against a wall, exhausted but upright. Michaela wiped blood from her lip and pretended it was boredom. Bucky looked down at the shield strapped to his arm, scratched, wet, still whole. A text buzzed on his burner, a number he didn't recognize. 2 words proud, S. Bucky swallowed hard. Somewhere far away, an old man was still watching. In the back of the transport, Monica flagged. The Skrull scientist sat with its hands in its lap, small and terrified without a stolen face. Bucky didn't know what the world would do with that truth. He only knew they'd survived long enough to choose what kind of victory this would be. Take us home, he told the driver, and then we start digging.